Hi, I'm Andrew Blyth, and this video is about a presentation that I did at the Japan Association of Language Teachers conference, their annual conference that was held in Shizuoka in Japan in November 2018. This presentation was about listening. I'm a teacher and researcher, and so I presented about the research that I did on how to teach listening. And this video is that presentation. And sorry about the sound quality. It is the best that I could do in the conference. If you'd like me to do this presentation again for your group, I do have extended versions of this presentation that I can also do. Feel free to invite me. And yeah, hope to see you again. And please leave your questions and comments below. Enjoy.
I didn't know how many people I would get, so I did 22 copies, and we got more than 22 people. Thanks for coming. My name's Andrew Blyth. You can get these slides and handouts and other things at my website, JALT.com. And hopefully everything will work today. So to begin with, yes, we're talking about teaching listening. This is based upon my research. I did a major research project, and so this is kind of going to be a bit workshopy. It's not going to be a normal introduction, methodology, results, conclusion kind of presentation. It's going to be a bit more practical. And so to begin with, to give you some context, we teach, as teachers, we teach syntax by teaching grammar rules. Very minimalistic approach to language teaching. Get any way you can find syntax. And when we teach grammar, we usually teach specific rules, as I said, in a minimalistic way. For instance, we teach simple present, past tense, future, continuous, past, passive, perfect, whatever type of rules. We teach the lexicon by teaching vocabulary and vocabulary rules, such as by introducing the forms and various meanings. So, for instance, drink, drank, drunk, and all of those forms, the meanings and the variations that there can be. And so we're very minimalistic when it comes to teaching grammar and for teaching vocabulary. But when it comes to teaching listening, it's very different. Usually, when we teach listening, teachers just put the CD in the CD player, press play, wait for it to end, students answer questions, and that's it. That's not actually teaching listening. Sorry. This is not teaching listening, but it's testing listening. As opposed to the other ways that we teach language. And so that approach, students don't learn any phonological rules, they don't acquire phonological phonetic skills, it doesn't teach any intonation rules. Do you know any intonation rules other than the voice going down on WH and up on yes, no? Do you know any other intonation rules? There's a lot. It doesn't provide enough audio examples, and students don't get enough listening practice, and just playing CDs and answering questions is usually boring. And boring for us too, right? So anyway, my research focused on the psycholinguistic principles of listening, and especially lexical segmentation. Lexical segmentation is discerning word boundaries, where one word ends and the next word begins. For listening to a stream of speech is quite easy, but if you don't have the skills, it's just a blur. I'm sure you've seen your students struggle, and so this is one of the reasons why they struggle. My research focused on what is practical for the classroom. It's not purely theoretical, it's applying theory and finding an effective way for students to build their listening skills. And so what is lexical segmentation? The brain is able to discern word boundaries in running speech by using phonetic, rhythmic, or syllabic cues. And for instance, we can tell the difference between keep sparking and keep sparking. I learn, soup or salad, super salad. We know that, we can hear that, but for me, when I was trying to get this research off the ground, it was hard because, like, the people who were, like, supervising this, they said, but I can hear the difference, and surely students can as well. They didn't quite understand the problem that students have. And so this research involved 8 teachers in Nagoya and hundreds of students, and the teachers were briefed on one of the lexical segmentation cues, and they devised their own way to teach for it. Each class was given a pre-test, and then the teacher did their teaching intervention. There was a post-test, and the teachers and students, at least 1 or 2 students per class, were invited to be interviewed and to get more information. And I forgot to add also, I did some observations as well. So it was like a mix of qualitative, quantitative approaches, and I gathered a huge amount of data, and I'd probably never be able to process all of it. Anyway, to cut to the chase, to get right to the main point, because I can go on for like 2 or 3 hours about my research. I think it's interesting. You might not. So the best things were kind of in order, using motivating materials. So one teacher chose to use a book, and in this book was a series of dialogues. She did 1 dialogue each week. Each dialogue was about 1 minute worth, and she quite simply played the CD. Students listened, they summarized, they listened again, and they filled in the blanks. But what was valuable with this was the story. Each dialogue was not an independent, isolated event. It was building up through a series of events. Also, the characters were the same age as the students, also in university, and they were going through similar social problems and social situations, such as finding love and conflicts between classmates and that sort of thing. And there were like times when it was like really exciting because it seemed like 2 male characters were about to clash over a girl. And so that became really interesting for them because they wanted to know what was going to happen next. Also, teaching specific phonetic and phonological features, like teaching grammar explicitly and explicitly teaching vocabulary, teaching phonetic and phonological features explicitly also helped a lot. In contrast, teaching intonation is really hard to do explicitly. It's easier to implicitly teach it. Peter Skian, in his cognitive something book, I forget the title, I think it was published in 1998. You can find it at the Oxford University Press booth. He said that some things are better to be taught explicitly and some things are better taught implicitly. Intonation seems to be better taught implicitly. Also, like a research project in China where Chinese students said that they want to listen to the same dialogue again and again and again and again, it benefited students. So even though it might seem dull to us, it was really, really good for them. Also, this kind of seems like a teaching 101 thing. Students need to see the answers to any activity written down, either on paper or on the board. And this is not something that I got from any of the interviews or anything like that. It was like me marking the pre-test and the post-test, where like answer number 8 might be duck, D-U-C-K, but the teacher obviously read out the answers and said number 8, duck. And the students who wrote down dog, they thought, okay, that's dog, D-O-G. Anyway, so all of these things, I thought about this and thought, okay, how do I apply the best results to my students, for my students, in a coherent way that just makes sense? And from my experience as, well, I started teaching children, and I found that teaching with a routine is like really, really easy. There's like 0 behavioral problems. Children know what's happening next, and you can teach in only English, and the same works with teaching young adults and adults. In an English-only environment, a routine makes things a lot easier because they know what's happening next. And so I decided to condense all of this down to one very simple 18-step process. But don't run away. It's actually quite logical. It's quite easy, I think. And we'll break it down in a moment. It's kind of like, it comes out in chunks. And it's on the handout. I'm sorry I didn't make enough handouts. But the other thing is, again, you can get this from my website. My website. Sorry. It'll come up later. So let's get into it. First 2 things is teacher-specific phonological, phonetic, or intonation skill. Just 1 per unit or 1 per week. And from all of this, I wrote my own book and I made it into my own textbook. And this is a sample from my textbook. So in this case, it's teaching stress patterns. Because I think you know Japanese, each syllable has equal weight. And that makes listening to English difficult because they don't know simple facts like 87% of English words are either monosyllable, 1 syllable, or 2 syllables with stress on the first syllable, which means that's a convenient way of identifying when a new word starts in speech. And that helps with the listening process. So training them on this, there's a few different ways to do this. This is like a maze that they go through. You can have not a single finishing point, but a few. You can have like 2 exit points, and because research by Bonovitz found that if children, and I assume the same applies to adults, don't know that there's only 1, 2, or 3 exit points, they keep looking for more exit points, and so they keep going through this and analysing this more. So there's more value. Also, for you as teachers, here is a really, really awesome thing. For your final exams, this is perfect for your final exam because it's visual. Of course, for the final exam, reorganise the answers, but if this is worth, say, 10% in a final exam, all they need to do is, with a colour marker, draw a line through. If you've got 100 papers, you can see immediately 10 points. Do that later. So this is great for a final exam, it's visual, and also when they're in class working on this, they can like be working with their partner and then like look at someone else like, oh, we got it really wrong. And so they have to reanalyze this again. So that's a really good activity. So first, as I said, some kind of phonological, phonetic, or intonation skill. And it's not just R and L, the stereotype things. These are also problem points that I found in my own research. And next is introduce new vocabulary. So they're getting some listening practice in identifying specific words, and these words appear in the dialogue that they're going to listen to. And after doing like 10 of these units, they know that the pronunciation relates to what they're about to listen to. And then you drill the pronunciation of words so that they can identify the words when they hear it in the conversation. So, for instance, just go for it. Sounds like a single word, just go for it. And so some students might say, what is it, just go for it? And highlighting that this is like a group of words and acts like a single vocabulary unit, it's easier for them to identify later. So you drill the pronunciation, then they practice in pairs again, so they listen to you, and then they try to say it themselves and they listen to their partner. So listening to it once, twice, maybe 3 times. And then the next thing is, and this is kind of important, they remind each other what happened last time in the story. They are investing time and energy in the story, and so when they're rehashing what happened last time, they're like picking up on vocabulary items and things that happened in the previous episode, and so they might say, "Oh yeah, heard it on the grapevine, yeah, and just friends." So that's getting them primed, ready for the next installment in the story. And then next is listen, and no papers, no books, no pens, nothing, just listen. And this is like the exciting moment. They're hearing the next part of the story and they're like focused. Maybe in the first 10 units they're just like, oh, this is listening. But eventually they realize this is accumulating story. This is going somewhere. And they want to know what happens to the characters. And so while they're listening to the next installment for the first time, they're like, and then when the CD ends, you're like, oh, and then they laugh or they like, ah. And so there's a lot of emotional reaction there. And then they summarize with their partner, and that's when weaker students can like come catch up on some things they missed, and then listen again. And when I do the listen again, this is an idea from David Noonan in his 1997 or 1998 something book. As they listen, they tick off the vocabulary as they hear it again, so they're identifying key words. And then they can summarize, again, any extra details they picked up. The next part is where they see the dialogue for the first time in written form. They have a pretty good idea of what's here, but as you play the CD, you pause so that they can fill in the blanks. So, lunch buddies again, pause. Play. Sure, my treat, it's payday, woohoo, pause. And so you do that just once. They compare answers with their partner. Sometimes they might have the same or different, or wasn't quite sure, is it but? And then when they see their partner's answer, buddies, oh yeah, okay. And so there's some clarification there. Then, as I said, repeated practice, you find any excuse to let them listen again and again. You have them listen again and check their answers, but play it straight through, no pausing. And that's when they might fix a few answers, or like, oh, here they said something. And then they check with the partner, and then they check the answers in the back of the book. The answers are written so they can clearly see it's duck, not dog. And then the next thing is listen and repeat with the teacher. This is for like an upper intermediate, lower advanced class. But the dialogue level is close to native speaker, sort of. So it's like a few levels higher than them. But it's part of an ongoing story, so they kind of know the background to the characters, why they're interacting in the way that they are. So they're able to fill in a lot of gaps themselves. And any parts of speech that they don't quite understand, as you're doing the listen and repeat, drilling the pronunciation, you can stop and say, do you understand this? And some of them are like, okay, let me explain. There can also be some points about culture, like, I don't think his fingernails, they're too long. You can talk about some cultural differences, or even like gender differences or expectations that people have. So you can talk about key things. So it's not just language, there's culture to talk about too, and also some social issues. And then, so they're listening again. Then they stand up, find a new partner, and they practice the 2 roles. And so they're listening again and speaking again. So they've listened to this one dialogue how many times? Like a lot. Anyway, a lot. And yeah, they practice together. And the next thing is, also really important, where they make a guess what might happen next in the story. So they're investing more emotional energy into the dialogue. And for my last few student survey results, I've been getting close to 5. Just because students are emotionally engaged in the story. They want to know what happens next, and they really want to zero in on what people are saying. And this is like really good scaffolding that helps them get much better at listening. So in April, when I start with a new class, I'm talking very slow like this. Now, this time of year, I'm talking almost my normal speed. And what else is there? So, when I was learning about teaching pronunciation, I was using handouts that people had photocopied and given to me, and then later I discovered that they were coming from this book, so I eventually got that book myself. And then, like a lot of teachers, we learned to teach grammar by the night before we had that class, looking at the textbook what is this? And figuring that for ourselves. That's how I learned to teach pronunciation as well, just by looking at books like this. And I forgot to bring my samples, I forgot to bring my books. So I went to Cambridge downstairs and said, could I borrow these? And this is the new version, that's the old cover, this is the new cover. And it's a double-page spread of a specific point, and there's a lot there. But you can just pick out what you need for a specific lesson. And the idea of the maze came from this book, and the different things that you can teach implicitly and explicitly came from that book, and of course from my experience. And this is the book that I wrote. You can find that on my website. And you don't have time for that. This is a short summary about the 20 pages of references I've got, and that's my website. So, would you like to have a look at this? Pass it around. Any questions?
Actually, Andrew,
Yes.
thank you very much for your presentation. Just wondering, so this class that you use orbits in, is this going to be a once-a-week class?
At first it was a once-a-week class, now it's a twice-a-week class.
Okay.
The book has 30 units, and because of you have to do speaking tests and other things that come up through the year, I get to 24 of the units, but the last few on the last day, we just blast through them, and they're and they find out what happens or doesn't happen to the characters.
Right. And so it's twice a week, and so this is a speaking and listening focused class that you...
It's a conversation class.
Okay.
And so, what I presented today takes up about 40, 45 minutes of class time, and then I pull out from the dialogue some conversation strategy or social strategy, and practice that in a few different ways. And in the other class we talk about an article, a short article that kind of relates to the topic in the dialogue.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes?
How often do you find yourself revisiting previously taught phonological features and skills?
That's a really good point. Repetition is really important. Repetition adds kind of a level of importance to a thing. So if you teach this is like word linking, because when you link vowel sounds together, like you as, you don't pronounce you as, you pronounce you as with a word in between. So I would do this in lesson 1, and then lesson 2, when we do the short article, we revisit this briefly, but students might do a test each other. So I would demonstrate first, you as, and then they say, oh, what, okay, and how about me okay? And they go, yeah, sound. And so you get extra mileage from activities like these. And so that adds importance. to the things you teach. Next question, running short time, super short time. I like questions. Yes?
Do you instruct phonetic things like glottal, plosive, and alveolar ridge or glottal things?
Glottal stops, yeah, they're easy.
The terminology like alveolar ridge and plosive and voice and voiceless, that sort of things.
It's easier when you do. So like t and d is like no voice, d is voice.
Japanese cannot pronounce t, because they don't know the location of alveolar ridge. So they are asking to pronounce what they say.
Show, like this is the tongue, this is the mouth, these are the teeth. Sound is made there, and with the voice, you can feel that.
And do it interact in that way?
Yeah, and make it like very visual.
I don't understand this example because to up is not connected to the again.
Yeah, so between these two vowel sounds, what joins them together just naturally comes out blue and white.
I understand that, but they are away in the maze, yes, this example.
Yeah, so they follow only the work sound in this case.
So this is not a way, these are only examples for this.
Examples, yeah. I think I have to stop. Yes.
I have a question. How do you direct students? Do you direct students manually or?
So I might use this in the final exam and then a speaking test where they show their ability to do small talk and then talk on a main topic. So it's not really using what we talked about today. But it's like giving them an example of how to have
Do you direct students in person? You have to make like this person in person.
Yeah, we don't have time to talk about exams, but we can talk later. All right, thanks very much.
So, I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you learnt something from it. You can leave your questions and comments below. I will answer them. If you see a question you can answer that yourself. Also, please hit subscribe and notifications so that you can be told when the next video comes out. And I hope to see you again in another video soon.